Months had passed since the signing of the Treaty of Thera. The galaxy, once scarred by centuries of conquest, was learning to breathe again. Human and Valari ships now shared the same lanes, carrying engineers instead of soldiers, supplies instead of weapons. But peace, as both Arian and Leon were learning, was far more fragile than war. Aboard the small diplomatic cruiser, Solace, drifting between human and Valari space, they were finally alone for the first time since the war ended. No cameras, no admirals, no ministers whispering threats. Just the hum of engines and the endless stretch of stars beyond. Leon stared through the viewport, arms folded. "You ever think," he said quietly, "that maybe the stars remember what we did to each other?" Arian glanced at him from the pilot's chair. "Stars don't judge," she said softly. "They just burn." "It's the living who carry the guilt." Leon smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "That's poetic for someone raised in a palace." She turned back to the console, a ghost of a smile on her lips. "And that's cynical for someone raised on hope." Chapter 1. The relic of Thera. Their mission was supposed to be symbolic, returning to Thera, the planet where their childhood friendship had begun. The Valari High Council wanted Arian to retrieve something left behind, an artifact of the old alliance that had once existed between their peoples, long before war. When they arrived, the world was almost unrecognizable. The once emerald forests had overgrown the ruins of the embassy cities, and the ocean shimmered with bioluminescent life. Life had gone on, unbothered by empires, in the ruins of the old diplomatic compound. They found it, a crystalline device buried beneath the dust, shaped like a teardrop. Still pulsing faintly with light, Arian knelt beside it, brushing away dirt. "This was the Eclipse Beacon," she said, "a relic of the First Contact Pact." Leon crouched next to her. "It looks like it's still active." "It was designed to reactivate if both human and Valari DNA were present," she said thoughtfully. Then she looked at him. "Meaning you and I," he blinked. "What does it do?" She smiled wistfully. "It broadcasts a signal of peace, a message to the stars, recorded by the first ambassadors. My ancestors wanted it to remind us that unity was once possible." Leon's gaze softened. "Then let's remind them again." They placed their hands on opposite sides of the crystal. It glowed brighter, pulsing with intertwined light, silver and blue. A low hum filled the air, like a heartbeat shared between two species. Then the beacon released a burst of energy that rippled across the atmosphere, illuminating the night sky. From orbit, every ship, human and Valari, saw the same pattern of light blooming across Thera's clouds, two circles interlocking. The ancient symbol of unity. Chapter 2. Shadows of the past. But peace, as history had proven, never came without opposition. When the signal spread, not everyone rejoiced. On the Valari side, the military hardliners called it propaganda. Among the humans, certain factions accused Leon of being compromised, too close to the enemy. A message came through the secure channel 2 days later. "Commander Hale, return to Earth for inquiry." Leon sighed, tossing the datapad onto the table. "They don't trust me anymore." Arian frowned. "You ended a century of bloodshed. They should worship you." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "People don't worship peace. They fear it." She reached across the table, resting her hand over his. "Then let them fear together." "I'll go with you." He looked up sharply. "Arian, if you step foot on Earth right now, they'll—" "I'm not afraid of your generals," she interrupted. "I've faced worse. If we're to rebuild trust, it has to start where it broke." He hesitated, then nodded. "Then we do this together." Chapter 3. The trial on Earth. The journey to Earth felt longer than any war campaign. As their ship descended through the clouds, Arian saw for the first time the blue marble she'd only known through data screens. It was beautiful, chaotic, raw, alive, but when they landed, the reception was cold. Soldiers lined the runway. The United Terran Council's banners flapped in the wind. And at the center stood Admiral Royce, Leon's old mentor. Royce's voice boomed as they approached. "Commander Hale, by order of the Council, you are hereby suspended pending investigation into unauthorized diplomatic activity." Leon saluted stiffly. "Understood, sir." Royce's gaze shifted to Arian, his expression hard. "And you, Princess Velis, you stand here as a guest of the Council." "Do not mistake that for freedom." Arian met his eyes, unflinching. I came in peace, Admiral. Something your kind used to value. Royce's jaw tightened. Peace bought with blood is fragile. Then stop spilling it, she said coolly. Leon shot her a warning glance, but she didn't back down. That night, Leon was confined to quarters for questioning. Arian, meanwhile, was given a diplomat's chamber. Lavish, but guarded. For the first time since the war's end, they were apart. Chapter 4. The Seeds of Betrayal. 2 nights later, Arian's communicator chirped softly. A hologram flickered to life. A familiar face. General Kaelor, one of the surviving Valari warlords she had fought against during the civil rebellion. Your Highness, he said, smiling like a serpent. You've been busy consorting with the enemy. Her eyes narrowed. Kaelor, I thought you fled to the Outer Rim. I did. And I found others who share my view, that the human victory was an illusion. You could still restore our empire if you join us. You're insane, she hissed. We've lost enough. He leaned closer, his tone dripping venom. And yet you kneel beside the man who destroyed us. How poetic. Then his voice turned cold. They will never accept you, Arian. The humans will use you until they no longer need your face for peace. The transmission cut before she could respond. When she turned, a human guard stood in the doorway, silent, his hand near his sidearm. Everything all right, ma'am? Yes, she said quickly. But her heart was pounding. Was Kaelor right? Were the humans truly ready to forgive? Or had she become a pawn in someone else's game? Chapter 5. The breaking point. The next morning, the inquiry began. Leon stood before the council, a dozen admirals, ministers, and strategists, while Arian was allowed to observe behind a transparent barrier. Commander Hale, Admiral Royce said sternly, you were ordered to maintain separation from Valari political leadership. Instead, you embarked on an unsanctioned mission with Princess Arian Velis, activated an unknown alien artifact, and broadcast an unverified signal across 6 sectors. Leon's voice was calm. A signal of peace. Peace without authorization, Royce snapped. You've jeopardized human sovereignty. Leon's patience cracked. Sovereignty means nothing if it costs us our humanity, murmurs rippled through the room. Royce's expression darkened. You've grown sentimental, Commander. That makes you dangerous. Arian slammed her hand against the barrier. Enough! He saved your world! He saved all of us! Guards moved instantly, restraining her. Leon shouted her name, but she was pulled from the room. Outside, chaos erupted. News feeds lit up across the networks. Human hero accused of treason. Valari Princess under arrest. Somewhere in the shadows. Kaelor smiled. Chapter 6. The rescue that night. As the city lights of Geneva flickered beyond the window, Arian sat in her guarded chamber, seething. Then, without warning, the power flickered. A whisper came through the dark. Arian, it's me. Leon emerged from the shadows, dressed in black, carrying a small data core. We don't have long, he said. The council plans to deport you to a detention moon by sunrise. Her eyes widened. Then what are you doing here? Breaking every law I ever swore to uphold, he said with a grin. Come on. They slipped through maintenance corridors, evading guards and drones. When they reached the hangar, a sleek shuttle awaited, Solace reactivated by a loyal AI. As they boarded, alarms blared. Unauthorized launch detected. Leon hit the controls. Hold on! The ship roared through the atmosphere, chased by defense interceptors. Plasma fire streaked past the hull. Arian took the gunnery console, returning fire with precision that made Leon glance in admiration. Still got it, he said. Still saving you, she shot back, smiling despite the chaos. They broke through the stratosphere and jumped into hyperspace seconds before the missiles hit. Chapter 7. The truth in the dark in, the quiet of space. The tension finally broke. Leon turned to her, voice low. We can't go back now. Not to Earth, not to the Valari worlds. Then where? He handed her the data core. This is what they were hiding. The real reason the war started, she activated it. A hologram unfolded showing a series of star charts, then a massive energy anomaly at the galactic rim. This isn't a weapon, she whispered. It's a signal, Leon nodded grimly. Both our governments knew. Something out there, something ancient, sent a transmission before the first shots were fired. They covered it up, blaming each other. Arian looked up, her expression unreadable. So we fought. Over fear of the same thing. Exactly, Leon said. Maybe it's time we find out what it really is. Epilogue. The edge of the galaxy. Weeks later, Solace emerged from hyperspace at the edge of known space. Ahead lay a vast structure floating in the void, older than any civilization, pulsing with faint light. The source, Leon murmured. Arian stared in awe. It's beautiful. As they approached, the ship's sensors flickered, translating the incoming signal into words. We watched your war. We waited for those who would end it. You are ready. Arian turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. Leon, they knew we'd come. He met her gaze. Then let's not disappoint them. Side by side, human and Valari, warrior and princey. The war between the Valari Empire and Earth's coalition of worlds had ended not with a treaty, but with silence. Cities burned across 3 planets, fleets drifted lifeless in orbit, and the stars seemed to dim in mourning. The Valari, once proud conquerors of 1,000 systems, had been defeated by the very species they'd dismissed as primitive apes. And somewhere in the ruins of Velis Prime, the Valari capital, Princess Velis waited to meet the human who had ended the war. Her people called him the Butcher of Velis, but whispers from the human channels used another name, Commander Leon Hale. The strategist who had united fractured human colonies into a single war machine. Arian remembered that name. Once long ago, on the peaceful world of Thera, she'd known a boy with that same name, an orphan child of diplomats, with bright blue eyes and a smile that could melt ice. They'd built sandcastles by the Thera shoreline, before politics and bloodlines tore them apart. Surely it couldn't be the same person. Surely he couldn't have been the one who brought her empire to its knees. Chapter 1. The Fallen Princess. The marble halls of the imperial citadel were silent. Where once ministers and courtiers had gathered, only the sound of boots echoed. Human boots. Arian sat on the shattered throne, her silver armor scuffed and blood-stained. Her crown lay beside her feet, bent, its jewels cracked. The once glorious banners of her house hung torn and scorched. When the human escort entered, she expected arrogance, cruelty, something fitting for a conqueror. Instead, the soldiers saluted sharply, as if still bound by discipline, not vengeance. Your Highness, said one of them, his tone cautious. Commander Hale requests an audience. Her heart froze. That name again. Send him in, she managed, though her voice trembled. Moments later, the man who had shattered the Valari walked through the great doors. He wasn't what she expected. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't even old. He looked like the boy she remembered, older, scarred. His eyes harder, but unmistakably Leon. He still wore his hair the same way, slightly messy, as if no amount of command could make him care about appearances. But his uniform, black, trimmed with silver, bore the insignia of Earth's supreme commander. For a moment, both simply stared. Arian, he said quietly, her composure cracked. Leon, it can't be, she whispered. You're... The same boy who used to steal sun fruit from the market stalls on Thera, he finished softly. It's been a long time. She stood slowly, disbelief painted across her face. You destroyed my world. He met her gaze evenly. I saved mine. Chapter 2. Memories of Thera. They had been children when their paths first crossed. The Valari and the humans had shared an embassy world then, a fragile attempt at peace between 2 expanding species. Thera had been lush, emerald forests, sapphire oceans, a place untouched by war. Arian, as the Emperor's daughter, had been kept under constant watch. But she'd always found ways to escape her guards. Climbing trees or sneaking into the marketplace, that's where she'd met Leon Hale. The curious human boy with no family name of worth, just a father working in the embassy kitchens. They had spoken through laughter, through curiosity, through the joy of being young enough not to care about species or politics. They had made a promise. When they grew up, they'd visit the stars together. That promise had died when the first Valari warships entered human space. Now, decades later, they stood on opposite sides of a shattered galaxy. Chapter 3. The Weight of Victory. Why did you come yourself? She asked him, forcing steel back into her voice. You could have sent anyone, Leon walked slowly across the ruined hall, his eyes scanning the debris. "Because I owed you an explanation," he said. "And because I wanted to see what was left of your victory." She spat. He stopped, looking up at the cracked dome that once bore the Valari insignia. "Of the cost," he said quietly. There was a long silence. Outside, the wind carried the distant hum of human transports and aid ships landing. Repair crews, not raiders. She frowned. "You're rebuilding?" He nodded. "We came to occupy, not annihilate. We want the war to end, truly end. No more empires. No more children raised to hate." Her expression softened despite herself. "You speak like a dreamer still." "I learned it from you," he said with a faint, tired smile. Something in her chest twisted painfully. Chapter 4. The ghosts between them days passed. Leon did not return to orbit. Instead, he worked with the Provisional Council, trying to stabilize the surviving Valari cities. Against every instinct, Arian found herself helping him. Together, they oversaw food distribution, medical operations, and the slow, painful restoration of order. She saw the way he treated her people with respect. When Valari citizens spat at him or cursed him, he simply nodded and kept working. One night, as the two stood on a balcony overlooking the ruined skyline, she asked, "Do you hate us?" Leon was quiet for a long moment before answering. "No, but I hate what your empire made me do, what it made all of us become. You burned our fleets, and your fleets burned our worlds," he replied softly. "We both bled. You just bled first." Arian looked away, her silver eyes glimmering. "The council blames me," she admitted. "They think I surrendered too early." "You saved lives," Leon said firmly. "That's not weakness. That's courage." Her throat tightened. No one had said that to her since the surrender. Chapter 5. Secrets in the Ashes. One evening, she caught him alone in the war archives. The holoscreens around him flickered with images, battle maps, casualty reports, intercepted transmissions. But what drew her attention were the files he had open, her father's war orders. "You're studying him," she said, stepping closer. Leon didn't look up. Trying to understand him, there's nothing to understand. He wanted domination. He finally turned to face her. No, Arian, he wanted survival. Every empire tells itself that story, even ours. She stared at him, uncertain. "You talk like someone who's lost faith." "Maybe I have," he said. "Maybe that's why I came down here. I didn't want to be another general sitting in orbit, pretending victory makes us right." Arian reached out and touched the edge of one holoscreen. "And what does make us right?" He looked at her hand, then her face. "Remembering who we used to be." Chapter 6. The Ambush. The peace did not last. A splinter faction of Valari warlords, refusing surrender, launched a surprise attack on the reconstruction zone. Missiles streaked through the night sky, tearing through supply depots and command centers. Leon was on the front lines before dawn, armor scorched, rallying both human and Valari soldiers who remained loyal to peace. Arian refused to stay behind. She took up her father's plasma lance and led a counter-offensive alongside him. When the smoke cleared, half the city was gone, but the rebellion was crushed. Arian found Leon in the rubble, bloodied but alive. As medics worked around them, she knelt beside him. "You're insane," she whispered. "Charging in like that," he laughed weakly. "I thought that was your job." "Not anymore," she said, voice trembling. "You could have died." He looked up at her, eyes still bright despite the blood. "Then I die knowing I fought for something real." Her breath caught. The weight of what she felt, the old affection, the grief, the impossible hope, crashed over her like a wave. She reached for his hand. Chapter 7. The Promise. Reborn. Weeks later, the reconstruction was complete. The first joint Human Valari Council convened under a new charter, the Treaty of Thera, named for the world where their friendship had begun. At the signing, Arian stood beside Leon, both bearing the scars of war but no longer enemies. When the cameras dimmed and the dignitaries dispersed, she turned to him quietly. "Thera," she said, "do you remember the promise we made?" He smiled faintly. "To visit the stars together." She nodded. "I remember," he said. "Though we took the long way around." They both laughed softly. Arian looked out the window where the twin suns of Velis rose above the horizon. My people will rebuild. Yours too, but what about you, Leon Hale? The hero of humanity. What happens to a man when the war is over? He hesitated, looking away. I don't know, he admitted. Maybe I'll finally rest. Maybe I'll keep helping rebuild. She reached out, taking his hand gently. Or maybe, she said, voice soft but certain, you'll keep your promise. Epilogue. The journey beyond months later. A small vessel lifted from the surface of Velis Prime. It wasn't a warship. It bore no insignia, no armies, just two passengers. Arian stood at the viewport, watching the planet shrink beneath them. Leon approached, carrying 2 steaming cups of synth tea. Destination? He asked. Thera, she said. Home. They smiled at each other as the stars unfolded before them. The wounds of war were not healed, not yet, but in that moment, for the first time in a century, hope felt real. As the ship entered hyperspace, Arian whispered, You know, I never imagined humanity could win against us. Leon chuckled. We didn't win against you, Arian. We won because we refused to stop believing. She turned to him, her eyes shining like starlight. Because of people like you? He shook his head. Because of people like us. The stars streaked past, and 2 old friends, once enemies, now allies, set off into the unknown, not as conqueror and captive, but as the first bridge between 2 worlds.